In Brazil, the death toll after heavy rains in the north coast of São Paulo rose to 57. Search and rescue operations continue for the 7th consecutive day. G20 finance ministers failed on Saturday to agree on a joint statement on the global economy at talks in India. And the counting of votes have begun in Nigeria as polling stations start closing in Saturday's presidential elections. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Brazil, the death toll rose to 57 after heavy rains hit the north coast of the state of São Paulo. Meanwhile, rescuers are advancing for the 7th consecutive day in the search for dozens of missing people. According to the military police of the territorial division, the 47 bodies were identified and released for burial, of which 16 were men, another 16 women, and 15 children. For its part, the state government indicated that 2,251 people are displaced and 1,815 are homeless. It also reinforced the request for tourists to take advantage of the unblocked roads and periods of calm weather and to leave the coast cities. The Civil Defense indicated that the volume of rainfall from Saturday 18th to Sunday 19th of the current month exceeded what was expected for the whole month in 3 of the 4 cities of the north coast of Paulista, with the city of São Sebastião being the most affected. On Saturday in Cuba, work continues to fight forest fires in Holguín. Local authorities informed that the area affected by the flames exceeds 1,300 hectares, and within the Mensura Piloto Natural Park are the most complex areas of the confrontation with the fire. Also reported that on Saturday that 4 of the outbreaks of the fire have been eliminated, and it is noted that there is no loss of life, although the material damage is growing. Meteorologist Elier Pila announced that the extensive plume of smoke coming from the fire is visible in the satellite images and also shows other smaller active fires throughout the country. Holguín also had another fire of considerable proportions just 3 weeks ago in the mountainous areas of El Prado, finally controlled after burning for nearly 2 weeks. Ecuador's Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities, CONAI, declares itself in permanent mobilization in its territories and demands the resignation of President Guillermo Lasso. During the Confederation's National Convention held in Quito on Friday, its president, Leonidas Issa Salazar, together with an enlarged council, called for the resignation of the Ecuadorian president due to the lack of legitimacy to govern and the breach of agreements. During the meeting, the organization also urged the National Assembly to promote an impeachment trial against Lasso for his alleged involvement in corruption cases. The organization also declared itself in permanent mobilization in each of its territories and announced that it will radicalize the struggle against mining and in defense of its historical demands.
We demand that the President of the Republic of Ecuador, Mr. Guillermo Lasso, for the dignity of our country, for his inability to govern and solve the problems of the people, present his resignation to the country, and step aside in the face of the accusation that weigh on him and his closest circle for alleged corruption in public companies, where his brother-in-law Danilo Carrera is involved, in addition to his links with drug trafficking in the case of El Encuentro.
The Confederation also announced the end of the talks with the national government in violation of the agreement signed after the strike on June 2022.
After analyzing the follow-up report on the results achieved during the dialogue tables set up following the indigenous and popular uprisings in June 2022, it is evident that there has been no political will on the part of the national government to comply with them. On the contrary, Guillermo Lasso's government has continued to advance its neoliberal policies that violate our territorial and community rights as well as the country's economy. We, the CONAI, are breaking off the dialogue process and are withdrawing from these follow-up tables and hold the national government responsible, since it has been due to the government's will that the commitments reached at the dialogue tables have not been complied with.
Peru's appointed President Dina Boluarte ordered on Friday the definitive withdrawal of her country's ambassador to Mexico, Manuel Gerardo Talavera. During a national television appearance, Boluarte accused Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador of violating the principles of non-interference in internal affairs after AMLO reiterated his support to the Peruvian people and his former President Pedro Castillo.
Mr. Lopez has decided to seriously affect the bicentennial relations of mutual respect, friendship, cooperation, and willingness to integrate what has historically united Peru and Mexico by privileging ideological affinities. I have therefore ordered the definitive withdrawal of our ambassador of the United Mexican States, and in this way diplomatic relations between Peru and Mexico are formally reduced to the level of charged affairs. Thank you very much.
The Mexican Secretary of Foreign Affairs regretted on Saturday the decision of the Peruvian government to reduce the level of diplomatic relations between the two countries. The statement comes after Peru's appointed President Dina Boluarte announced on Friday the decision to permanently withdraw her ambassador from Mexico as a response to comments made by President Andrés Manuel López Obrador in favor of former Peruvian President Pedro Castillo. The statement reiterates the Mexican government's interest to maintain its diplomatic and consular representation in Peru to promote the ties between the peoples of both countries and to provide attention to the Mexican community in the South American country. The note also expresses the government's hopes that a solution to the disagreements between both fraternal nations be reached soon. Peru's government declared a 90-day health emergency in 59 districts on Friday in order to combat the outbreak of dengue. The latest report of the National Center for Epidemiology, Prevention and Disease Control of Peru stated that so far this year, 11,585 cases of dengue fever and 16 deaths have been detected in the country, 12 of them confirmed with disease and 4 under investigation. So far, the regions most affected by the disease are Ullacali, Loreto and Madre de Dios, with more than 2,000 active cases. The Ministry of Health warned that if this outbreak persists without strengthening health interventions, there is a risk that death will increase and cases will spread to other regions and metropolitan Lima, a city of 10 million inhabitants. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back from the south. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky affirms that the armed forces are getting ready to carry out alleged attacks against the Russian peninsula of Crimea. According to Zelensky's statements, Ukrainian troops are taking various military and logistical measures to carry out what they consider to be a displacement in that Russian region. In this context, the president affirmed that people are being sent for training, not only in Ukraine but also in other countries. Meanwhile, Dmitry Medvedev, deputy chairman of the Russian Security Council, assured that in the event that Kiev attacks the Russian peninsula of Crimea or inside the country, the response will be prompt, firm and resolute. The Polish government evaluates the possibility of producing ammunition together with the United States. In a statement to the press on Friday, Polish President Andrzej Duda said he had held talks with his U.S. counterpart Joe Biden to evaluate this possibility with the aim of assisting Ukraine in its conflict with Russia. The Polish president assured that these conversations will continue at the highest levels of both nations. On the other hand, the head of the European diplomacy, Joseph Borrell, indicated on February 21st that the European Union will resort to their arms reserves to speed up military aid to Ukraine. The delegation sent by the Ministry of Defense of China to the European Union countries for consultations on the development of bilateral defense relations concludes this working visit on Saturday. In a statement issued by the security agency, it was reported that the delegation arrived on Thursday, February 16th and remained at the headquarters of Hungary, Germany, the European Union and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization until Saturday, February 25th. It was also detailed that the main task of the visit consisted in holding consultations for the exchange of views on regional and international security issues of mutual interest, among them the Ukrainian conflict. Other issues of the visit concluded the strengthening of mutual understanding and trust between China and the European Union bloc. Search and rescue efforts continue for 47 miners in the Chinese autonomous region of Inner Mongolia after the collapse of a coal mine. So far, 6 miners have been reported dead. Rescue teams have opened 2 lifelines on the east and west sides of the collapsed mine on Saturday. The opening of the rescue channels have allowed more heavy equipment crews to come together to clear a large volume of landslides. So far, more than 50 sets of machinery are racing against time to remove the debris, and more are on their way to help boost the rescue operation. The open pit mine collapsed at around 1 p.m. local time on Wednesday. So far, 6 people have been rescued from the rubble, 6 have been confirmed dead, and 47 others are still missing. The cause of the accident is still under investigation. In Turkey, authorities report a 5.3 magnitude earthquake registered this Saturday in the province in the center of the country. According to the Kandili Seismographic Observatory, the epicenter of the quake was located in Bor municipality, about 10 kilometers southwest of Ning, city, capital of the province of the same name. According to local sources, the telluric movement was registered at 1:37 p.m. local time and could be felt in several regions near Ningde. At the moment, there is no information about possible material or human loss. Ningde is located about 200 kilometers west of the areas devastated by the earthquakes of last February 6. According to Turkey Disaster and Emergency Management Administration, the death toll reached 44,218 following the 7.8 and 7.6 magnitude earthquakes on February 6 and the 20th, which had their epicenters in Kahramanmaraş and Hatay, respectively. The agency said that these earthquakes were followed by over 9,000 aftershocks. In addition, Disaster Management Administration reported the completion of 335,000 tents and the construction of some 130 temporary prefabricated shelters to help over 2 million people who lost their homes as a result of the natural disasters. Syria received on Saturday a shipment with 1,000 tons of humanitarian aid from Egypt to assist those affected after the earthquakes of February 6. The chargé d'affaires of the Egyptian embassy in Damascus, Mahmoud Amar, informed that an Egyptian Navy ship anchored on Saturday in the port of the coastal city of Latakia with the humanitarian shipment. Mahmoud stressed that this shipment is the largest in terms of size and weight and includes food and medicine for Syrian citizens. The official further highlighted the strong ties between Cairo and Damascus and stressed the need to show solidarity with the Syrian people to help them overcome the repercussions of this disaster. And you can now watch teleSUR English in 33 different African countries through StarSat, dial 461, and enjoy our Latin American alternative broadcast. We have more news coming up after the final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. G20 finance ministers failed on Saturday to agree a joint statement on the global economy at talks in India. At a two-day meeting in Bengaluru, the G20 presidency noted that global growth remains sluggish and risks such as high inflation persist. The resurgence of pandemic and the high debt of many poorer nations affected also because of the armed conflict in Ukraine. The presidency also noted that there were different assessments of the current Ukraine crisis and the sanctions against the government of Vladimir Putin. For its part, India, host country of the G20, supported the Russian military operation in Ukraine, and it was announced that there will be no joint G20 statement after China objected to use the word war over Ukraine topics.
two countries had a reservation. So with a footnote, certainly a communique can't go out. And therefore, it had to be a chair summary and an outcome document. Russia and China.
Nirmala Sitharaman, Indian finance minister, pointed out that the G20 must provide solutions to the debt problem of vulnerable countries.
The vulnerable countries are looking up to the G20 to find some solution, some kind of arrive at a position whereby their debt stress can be relieved. And many of them have been waiting for a very long time. So if we could arrive after so much of negotiation at a common position for a language on dealing with debt, I think the G20 is now standing up to meet the challenges of debt stress which many countries are facing, and this is a development.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz arrived in India on Saturday to deepen bilateral trade relations. In Scholz's first visit to India, the leader informed that he plans to exchange a series of memorandums of understanding focused on collaboration in digital technologies, besides rapidly concluding negotiations on the Free Trade and Investment Protection Agreement between New Delhi and the European Union. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi said the two countries have been working together to collaborate on green partnerships and climate action. The conflict between Russia and Ukraine also featured prominently in the talks, with Scholz noting that he expects India to do what is necessary, while Modi stressed India's emphasis on resolving this dispute through dialogue and diplomacy. The counting of votes have begun in Nigeria as polling stations start closing in Saturday's presidential elections. According to the Independent National Electoral Commission, polls were scheduled to close at 2:30 p.m. local time. However, the electoral body clarified that voters still in line before the closing time will still be able to cast their ballots. Nigerians are supposed to choose a new president out of 18 candidates since current President Muhammadu Buhari has already finished his second and last term in office. To win the election, a candidate will have to get at least 1/4 of the votes in each of at least 2/3 of all states. Otherwise, a second electoral round will be necessary. Nigeria has more than 210 million inhabitants and has at least 93 million registered voters, almost 40% of whom are under 35 years old. In Cameroon on Saturday, at least 19 people were wounded after a series of explosions occurred during a marathon race. According to local media, the event took place in the city of Buea, in the west of the country, when the race of the Esperanza of the Mount of Cameroon was taking place, in which 529 athletes were participating. According to sources, the armed group called the Government Council of Ambazonia claimed responsibility for the explosions, alleging that they were directed against Cameroon's elite forces who were guarding the athletes. The active phase of the MOSI 2 joint naval exercises of the Russian, Chinese and South African navies started on Saturday in the waters of the Indian Ocean. The exercises are aimed at promoting security cooperation among the BRICS and are taking place in an area between the South African ports of Durban and Richards Bay. The program of the exercise includes artillery target practice, responses to airstrikes by a suspected enemy, anti-terrorist actions, tactical maneuvers, and assistance to a ship in danger of sinking. Naval forces of three countries already conducted joint maneuvers in November 2019 off the coast of Cape Town.
I believe that this joint exercise will play a good role in promoting BRICS cooperation, particularly leading BRICS countries in future military, security and navy cooperation. The trilateral military exercise is above board and welcomed and supported by people who uphold and love peace around the world.
We have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.